Let's pause the recording. So firstly, good evening. It's I can't tell you, as a teacher and as part of a staff, to be back in a Madrasha Tilla classroom, to be back in a room, at least for no better word, to be back in a classroom via Zoom perhaps, but we're in a classroom of 34 people. It's amazing. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. For teachers not to be able to teach is something which I've learned over the years. That's not an excitement. Sometimes we need a little break. I'm desperate to get back into a classroom. I'm desperate to be able to share my experiences with you and hear yours back to me, which helps me too. And I'm missing that tremendously. So it's so nice to be back. And Amit Hashem, at least the schedule which has been put together is so fantastic. Yes, we're missing out part of the face-to-face, but doing the best in a very tough situation. So much credit to Mrs. Kagan, who's with us now, but to Rabbi Manning too, to Rabbi Kagan, to Mrs. Levy, the amount of organizational work into this. And we're really lucky, using technology truly for its best with flying colors. And we have a lot to be proud about from that just that in itself. Let me begin with Yom HaShoa. And Yom HaShoa, which is celebrated in Israel, it was today, where you are, it probably still is today, but we're in a different part of the world. We're already into, I would say it's already Wednesday here, but it's Tuesday night, so it's already Wednesday. We've already counted Sphira, which for those who haven't yet counted, in America, wherever you are, you still can count. It was 12. Fast tonight, it's 13. Tonight, the Hebrew date is Chaf Ches Nisan. Please remember that, because I'm going to come back to that as we progress in the share, or in the talk, whatever you want to call this, Yom Yun, which means that Yom HaShoa is remembered on Chaf Zayin Nisan. Again, if today is Chaf Ches Nisan, that means Yom HaShoa is on Chaf Zayin Nisan. Today, Tuesday, is Chaf Zayin, the 27th of Nisan. Just a very brief part of background to Yom HaShoa, but remember those dates, Chaf Zayin and Chaf Ches, because I hope to come back to that within 20-25 minutes. Today is Yom HaShoa. Why today? Why today? And the truth is that is a very complicated question. It's a question which I don't necessarily have time to go into in great length, but in 60 seconds, the question is complicated for a number of reasons. Do you need a day for Yom HaShoa? And if the answer to that question is yes, what do you mean? We have memorial days for so many different things in the Jewish calendar. Read leaving Egypt a week ago. Read the splitting of the sea also a week ago on the seventh day of Pesach, 7th/8th. We commemorate so many different things. Purim. And the story which happened after Purim, which in our chronological year is actually before, but it happened after, is the Hanukkah story. For sure, we have memorial, commemoration, celebration, days and dates. The question is, what about Yom HaShoa? And that was a huge question, well out of my zone to be able to come to a conclusion about. And the same goes for all of you. That was brought to the greatest tzaddikim of the generation post-war, which is one or perhaps two generations ago, including names like the Chazon Ish, and including other names of great tzaddikim in America, great tzaddikim in Eretz Yisrael. It was a very, very big question. Everyone wanted to commemorate or to have a memory, to have a day. So what's complicated? What's complicated is twofold. Number one, and this is what the Chazon Ish in Bnei Brak, Rav Karelitz, said, we can't institute more days to fast. We can't institute more days to commemorate bad things which have happened to us as a nation because we're not great enough to do that. We have so many days of fasts. We have Tisha B'Av. And if you want to have a day for Yom HaShoa, incorporate it in one of those days. So basically, part number one of the discussion, should you have Yom HaShoa, is who are we to institute days and dates to commemorate? Another question to consider, again, I'm not telling you what the conclusion is. Different people, you have to ask your Rav, you have to ask your Rabbi. I do that in my world of keeping halacha. You have to do the same. But another big query is, what should that date be? Yom HaShoa. The reason why it is in the month of Nisan is because the day or the date which was chosen to commemorate those survivors, or I should say more accurately, unfortunately, those who didn't, was the date as close as possible to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. There was a huge uprising in Warsaw, in fact, one of the most, probably the most successful uprisings in the Second World War, and it happened actually on the day of Erev Pesach. Now, you can't have a day of commemoration for people who died and a memorial day on Erev Pesach because it's Yom Tov. And it went into Leil HaSeder. It's Yom Tov. You can't have a memorial day then. And therefore, they pushed it off till after Pesach. But this was question number 2. Can you have a memorial day for such a tragedy in the month of Nisan, which is a month which you're not allowed to fast in? It's a kind of a month which has so much Yom Tov in, the whole month is treated as Yom Tov. For those who know what I'm referring to, we don't say Tachanun in the month of Nisan, and that's part of the problem. And query. And query number 2 is, what are we trying to commemorate? Is it the uprising, or is there more to it? But let me just share with you the response of the Kalavar Rebbe, whose first yahrzeit was a week ago. He was that great Rebbe who survived the Holocaust. In fact, probably many of you
Rabbi
have seen.
Turner.
Yes.
So, there's girls trying to get in, and I'm not a host anymore. You'll have to let them in.
Okay.
Can you make Mrs. Levy a host also?
Make me a co-host. He has to make me a co-host, not a host.
Okay. Are you now a co-host?
I'll see if I don't see any, whatever. I'll figure it out. Am I? No.
So I can make you a host, but then you're going to have to come back.
No, but then you're losing it.
Okay, but I'll do it for a few minutes.
Okay.
I've made you a host.
Yeah.
The Kalavar Rebbe, who was known to be that great rabbi, probably you've seen pictures of him. He was a Hasidic Rebbe, long payas. He wore generally a gold outer garment. He was such a gorgeous personality. He brought so much simcha to the world, even though what's unique about the Kalavar Rebbe is he never had a beard, or so it would seem. You'll see pictures of a Hasidic Rebbe. You would expect a long beard, no beard. He suffered terribly through the experiments of Dr. Mengele in Auschwitz. And he made it his dream, and he made it his goal, and he made it his purpose to teach the world Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Sometime I'll show you a video about that, not right now. But the Kalavar Rebbe, whose yahrzeit, his first yahrzeit, the anniversary of his death, was last week. The first year came to conclusion. He argued, when the discussion came up about having a day to commemorate the Shoah, he says, what do you mean a day to commemorate Yom HaShoah? He said, for us survivors, every day is Yom HaShoah. Every day is Yom HaShoah, and that was part of the complication, and that's why not only was it a halachic issue, it was also very, very sensitive, and it still is sensitive. I know people till today, some survivors I've met, some survivors I've actually, some others of you have met as well. I'm not going to go into names right now, who also are confused. Last night, I sent an email to a close friend / adopted grandmother, Angela Oritz. And she was born in Auschwitz. And it's a very, very emotional and a confusing day to day. And I'll tell you one more point, which is worth remembering when it comes to the Shoah. And that is, I'm going to give you 3 examples. Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Belzec. Auschwitz was known as the greatest cemetery in the world. It still is. Treblinka was the second, and Belzec was the third in the number of Jews, the number of Yidden who were killed during the Holocaust, during what we call the Shoah, which, by the way, was an adopted word after the Holocaust came to an end. Let me just tell you a little bit of numbers. Again, these numbers are so inaccurate because we don't have accurate information. And as I heard from a survivor who was a survivor of Majdanek, as he was walking through Majdanek, he burst into tears. And he says, why are you talking about 18,000 people who were killed in what the Germans refer to as the Harvest Festival, the Ehrenfest in Majdanek on November the 3rd? 18,000 Jews were killed. And he got so angry with a memorial in Majdanek which says 18,000. He said, that's not true. And he said such a brilliant but harsh line. The Holocaust didn't happen in round numbers. What about the individuals? It wasn't 6 million people who were killed. And whenever I quote that number, I always say it wasn't 6 million. Maybe it was 6,000,001, 2, 3, 18. It wasn't such a round number. The Germans, they were very meticulous, but they weren't that perfect. And let's be very, very careful whenever you hear numbers quoted. Be careful. Some numbers, unfortunately, maybe have been exaggerated, and even more tragically, some of those numbers are far underestimated than they should be. In fact, every year I go back to Majdanek, the official numbers dropping of how many people were killed in Majdanek. And as I once heard from an historian, soon they're going to say about Majdanek that actually it wasn't the Germans who killed the Jews, it was the other way around. The numbers are going lower and lower and lower. It's incredible, even in the years that I've been to Europe. But let me just take Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Belzec. In Auschwitz, from March 1942 until November 1944, I've got the exact dates, it doesn't matter. From March 1942 to November 1944, when Yidden were killed in Auschwitz, roughly 1.1 or 2 million Jews were killed in Auschwitz. And I made the calculation. I put this into a computer and it came out that it was almost exactly 977 days that Auschwitz killed Yidden. And if you do the simple maths, 1.1 million Jews, and I'm rounding off the number, I apologize to all of those individuals, but it's 1.1 million individuals, Jews, who were killed in 977 days. That means every day in Auschwitz, roughly 1,126 Jews were killed. Which means if you want to have a day to have a memorial, 1,126 every day in the years that Auschwitz was active. Treblinka, the numbers were a little less, but the dates were different because it was only from 1942 to 1943. 466 days, 800,000 Yidden, which comes out to even a bigger number than Auschwitz per day, 1,766. Shocking numbers. And in Belzec, where 600,000 roughly Yidden were killed, it comes out to 1,273 per day who were killed. And therefore many people argued, how can you have one day to commemorate? And therefore, please let's remember, today we are commemorating Yom HaShoa. But it's something I wish, in my life, it's become a reality, this wish, this dream, that I should feel connected to Klal Yisrael to such a degree that I don't just feel I can put it into a nice, neat box. The survivors don't want us to walk around depressed every day because today 1.126 Yidden were killed in Auschwitz. Statistic, no, of course that's not the point. But to feel connected to every neshama, every Jew, every person who's going through suffering. And you know, I'll put it into an even clearer perspective. If we would have one day per person who was killed in the Holocaust as a memorial to commemorate their life, let's stick with that terrible number, which has been rounded off terribly, 6 million. Do you know how many years we would need to give a day per person? In other words, just one day. Today should be the yahrzeit of Yankel Pfefferberg from Lodz. Tomorrow should be the yahrzeit of Gittel, Stern from Warsaw, and so on and so forth. A day per person who was killed, and we're sticking with the number 6 million. It would be 16,901 years just for a day per yahrzeit, a candle per person. Let's put the number 6 million in perspective, and let's put the concept of a Memorial Day in perspective. I want to share with you a beautiful story. A beautiful story. And we're talking about Neshamas of Klal Yisrael. There was a couple, and this family lived in a place called Warsaw. I'm sure you've all heard of it. In fact, those who have been to Warsaw, there's a memorial in the center of Warsaw. It's called the Rappaport Memorial. Around the corner from the Rappaport Memorial is an incredible street. It's a street which housed a number, not one, but a number of Stiebelach. And I presume we're accustomed to the concept called a Stiebel. Let me share with you a fascinating story. And you know what? As I share this story, I'm going to share with you the story, but with a background. So if I'm the host, this will be easier for me. Can I share? Yeah, can you re-enable me to be the host? So I'm going to share this story and just sit and relax and try and bring yourself into what I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you some fantastic sand art, which was created literally a few weeks ago with the help of a certain singer. I'm not going to play the music too loudly because of Sphira, but as I'm sharing this story, take a look. The name of this clip is Ani Maamin. I'm going to share it with you now. Let me just see if I can do this without losing my own screen. And the story I'm sharing with you is not exactly what's being related in this story, but part of this is very beautiful. Can you all see Ani Maamin?
Yeah.
The music, in fact, I'm going to turn off because the sound is not important right now, but there's nice music in the background. Another time, if you want, I can send you the link. So listen carefully to this beautiful story. You should all be able to see just on the screen sand art, is that right? Okay. Reb Abish Zilbashain. And take a look at this music, at this film in the background. Reb Abish Zilbashain was a Ger Chassid. He had a child called Yisrael, who married a girl called Bela. Zilbashain was a Ger Chassid. Bela was a Mojitz Chassid. Bela came from a family called Family Festig, and she got married to this Ger Chassid called Yisrael. And they had a dream. They wanted to move to Israel. They wanted to move to Eretz Israel. So Yisrael made a maiden trip, and he traveled to Eretz Israel to see, will we make it there financially? He comes back a few months later, and he comes running to his parents with the research he had done, and he tells his family, his father was called Abish Zilbashain, he says, Daddy, this is the situation, but it's not so easy. It's really not so easy. And said Yisrael to his father, I'm a bit hesitant. Should I be making this trip or not? Abish goes to his, so to speak, his son's father-in-law, called Reb Israel Festig. And he says, Reb Israel, what do you think? And they said, I don't know what to say. Is it a clever idea for our children to make this trip or not? And I'm just going to pause the video over here. Is it a good idea for our children to make this trip or not? And he said, I don't know. I don't know. So Reb Israel turns around to Reb Abish and they say, you know what we should do? Let's go and ask the Gera Rebbe. Let's go and ask the Imre Emes. And they go to Reb Avraham Motcha, who lived in the heart of Warsaw, literally around the corner from the Rappaport Memorial. And they ask him for guidance. And they say, this is the situation. These are the practical details. This is what my children have. What do you think? And both of these two Hasidim, Reb Abish and Reb Israel, turn around and they say, Rebbe, whatever you say, that's what we're going to listen to. We're very hesitant, we're scared. And the Ger Rebbe turns around to these two, and then he looks at the child, Yisrael, who's deciding should he go or not. And he says one word, and he says far, which means travel, which means go. Far, like people say in Yiddish, far Gesundheit, go. And it was that one word which saved this couple. And in fact, they were pretty much the sole survivors of their families. They both went to Eretz Yisrael. They built a home, they built a family, many children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. What was the end of that story? Reb Israel Festig stayed in Warsaw. Reb Abish Zilbashain stayed in Warsaw. Reb Israel Festig eventually, 1943, leading into 1944, Warsaw was literally emptied and he was taken to Treblinka. On the train to Treblinka, Reb Israel Festig, and this is a bit of the story which I didn't tell you, he was a musician. And Reb Israel Festig was the musician in the Mojitza Beis HaMedrash. And Reb Israel Festig is sitting there in the cattle cart and he begins to cry like everyone is doing. Some people are so drained from tears they can't even do that. And he starts humming a tune to the words of Ani Maamin. And as he hums the tune to Ani Maamin, he doesn't realize this, but he's in his own world. And people began to catch on to the tune. And people started humming together with him. You might know the tune. I'll just hum a little bit of it. Ani Maamin, Ani Maamin. You might know that tune. It became a famous tune. And as he's singing, he doesn't realize people start singing with him, and people start crying. And eventually he stands up and he looks around, and he sees the people, and he realizes that everyone's singing together with him. And everyone's singing. And everyone's singing along. And Israel Festig starts to cry again. And he stops singing and he turns around to the audience. And he says, if there's anyone here who is willing to take a letter, and I'm going to write on a piece of paper the music notes, and take it to America, where the Mojitzer Rebbe was now living. The Mojitzer Rebbe, his name was Shaul Yedidia. He's now living. I will give you a chelik in my Olam Haba. And two Hasidic Bachrim put their hands up. And they said, we're willing to make the risk. He wrote the notes of music. He gave it to these two boys, and they jumped out of the carriage window. Tragically, one of the boys didn't survive. The other one made it to America. And this I heard firsthand from Rabbi Zion Shenker. You might have heard the name. He was the famous Mojitzer musician. Rabbi Zion Shenker said like this. He said, I was at a bris of a grandchild of the Mojitzer Rebbe in 1945 in America. The end of the bris. The Mojitzer Rebbe looks at me and he says, come here a second. And he looks at a few other Hasidic Rebbes and other Rebbes who were there at that bris. Rabbi Yitzchok Hutner was one of those people. The Kopschitzner Rebbe was one of them. The Stoliner Rebbe was another one. And then he called Rabbi Zion Shenker. And Rabbi Zion Shenker, together with these great tzaddikim, comes to the Mojitzer Rebbe. He says, I need to talk to you all. And the Rabbi Zion Shenker says, what do you mean? I'm a young boy. You don't need me. And he says, I need you too. And he shows them this letter, which he had just received from a family of member of his, Rabbi Israel Festig. And he turns around to Rabbi Zion Shenker and he says, I need you because you know how to read music. Can you read us the notes? Can you read us this song? And Rabbi Zion Shenker starts singing that famous Ani Maamin, which was written on a cattle cart from Warsaw to Treblinka. And the Rebbe turns around and he says, we have to go and sing this with the Hasidim. He goes outside, they start singing with the Hasidim, said Rabbi Zion Shenker, there was not a dry eye. And everyone started singing that Ani Maamin. And that became the Mojitzer Rebbe's Ani Maamin, which he taught everyone. Tragically, Rabbi Israel Festig was killed. Rabbi Israel Festig, in fact, I can show this to you now. This is Rabbi Israel Festig. He's the one who authored that song. This is Rabbi Israel Festig. You see here, he was the Chazan in Mojitz, a musician. He composed Ani Maamin on the way from Warsaw to Treblinka, the Heiliger Rabbi Israel David Festig. One of the most important messages which the Mojitzer Rebbe wanted us to know, and especially on Yom HaShoa, we should remember this. Ani Maamin be'emunah shalema. We go through tough times. We have all been through tough times. In fact, no secret, we're going through tough times. Ani Maamin be'emunah shalema. B'vias HaMashiach. Rabbi Israel Festig, he didn't survive, but his children and grandchildren did because of one word. And a couple who had emunas chachamim, and a couple who were willing to trust. If the Rebbe says you can go, you should go. And they went. And that is the beauty of Ani Maamin be'emunah shalema. The messages which I have heard time and time again from survivors is just that. Is just that. And let me just come towards an end. I'm not going to end just yet. I'll end within about 5-10 minutes. But let me just end the final part of this speech today with a few very, very beautiful stories, but / messages, which I'd love if we can all hold on to. I don't know if you remember, as you come up the hill towards Neve Yerushalayim, on the left-hand side is building number 10 HaKablan. You might have known Rabbi Leff, who teaches here. in Neve, you might know family Birnbaum who live in that building, and there's a few other fantastic, very, very special, beautiful families who live there. One of the families who live there is called family Birnbaum. He is a Rosh Yeshiva in the Yeshiva Katana on Rehov HaKablan, which is where we are now, you two, because we're here. And his wife, her maiden name was Moshkovitz. Rabbi Birnbaum's wife, Mrs. Moshkovitz, now Birnbaum, she had a mother who went through Auschwitz. Her name was Itta Moshkovitz. Her name is Itta Moshkovitz. She survived. She never wanted to share her story. Until one day, she was sitting with her Rebbe, the Skoliner Rebbe. Now, you might say, who was the Skoliner Rebbe? I guarantee you, you know the Skoliner Rebbe. The Skoliner Rebbe, his name was Yisrael Avraham. His family name was Portugal. Rabbi Yisrael Avraham Portugal, the Skoliner Rebbe, he founded the Hasidus, which was led in Skolin, the Skoliner Rebbe's Hasidus, and it was led eventually by Yisrael Avraham, who passed away last year. And when Rabbi Yisrael passed away, he left over a legacy, and this is what I guarantee you, you know. I'll tell you a few songs which he left over. Anyone knows the song, Ayayay Shabbos, Ayayay Shabbos, Ayayay Shabbos Goydesh? That was his. Anyone know the song, V'taher Libeinu Li'avdecha? That's the Skoliner Rebbe. Achas Sha'alti Yivoda Bagayim. Anyone knows the song, La Yehudim, La Yehudim, Ha Isaira? That was his. The Skoliner Rebbe. The Skoliner Rebbe once said to Esther Moshkovitz, you need to say over your stories. And he quoted a pasuk in Hallel, which we said last week for 7 or 8 days, which we're going to say in 2 days' time on Rosh Chodesh, Friday and Shabbos. And he said, Lo amos ki echye. Lo amos, I didn't die. Ki echye, surely I'm going to live. Va'asaper ma'aseka. The responsibility is to say over. And it was because of that statement of the Skoliner Rebbe that Itta Moshkovitz said over some incredible experiences. But the reason I'm sharing that with you is because we should remember the words of Hallel should give us inspiration. We just spent a week singing Hallel, and one of the continuous messages I hear time and time again from people now who I know closely, who are survivors, is keep singing, don't stop singing, don't give up. The survivors don't want us to sit mourning. One of the reasons that many Rabbanim agreed to have one day is because survivors didn't want every day to be Holocaust, Holocaust, Holocaust. They wanted us to rebuild. But let me tell you a beautiful story. Rabbi Yosef Friedenson, who was a survivor and then one of the leading members of the Agudas Yisrael in America, Rabbi Yosef Friedenson said over the following. Listen to this, beautiful timing for me and you. He says, one day, the day after Pesach, I left Buchenwald. I didn't leave Buchenwald. I was pushed out of Buchenwald, which was a labor camp in Germany, a concentration camp in Germany. I was pushed out to go to work, like we were every single morning, early morning. And one of my friends who was a yeshiva bacher together with me before the war, one of my friends turns around to me and he says, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And he says, what's the matter? And he says, I don't know. He says, every day of Pesach, I started davening from memory. Now, I was a yeshiva bacher before the war. I know davening, a lot of it off by heart. I said the bracha for Hallel. I started saying Hallel and suddenly blank. I could not remember any of the words. And he started crying as we're being pushed to work. And he says, I don't know. I can't remember all the words. But he says, Yosef, I make a promise in front of you that the day liberation happens, which is going to happen. The day liberation happens, the first minute I can, I am going to start singing Hallel to make up for the bracha levatala, for make up for that bracha which I said without actually completing the mitzvah of saying Hallel. That's called the bracha levatala. Amazing. That was the day after Pesach. A week later, that year, 1944, it was the 11th of April. It was Chof Ches Nisan. Tonight is the anniversary of this story. Buchenwald was liberated. The excitement was tangible. It was electric. Yosef Friedenson said, we ran to give hugs to our American liberators, clearly, messengers of Hashem. We ran to give them hugs. And then I was looking for my friend and I couldn't find him anywhere. And I was looking for my friend. Is he okay? Where is my friend? I ran back into Buchenwald. I ran back into the camps. I ran back into my barracks. And I saw my friend swaying in the corner, singing Hallel. I saw my friend swaying in the corner, singing Hallel. Can you imagine saying those words? In Buchenwald, the day of liberation, today, a bit more than 70 years ago. More, 8 years ago. Buchenwald, 1944. Hallel takes on a different meaning. Do you know what Hashem wants from me and you? Do you know what Hashem wants from me and you? And I'm talking to me and you. He wants us to live with simcha. He wants us to live with joy. He wants us to live with that ani maamin. He wants us not to let go. And I'll just end with one story and then get back to that video. Reb Shalom Shvadron, the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. Reb Shalom Shvadron once said that he heard from a survivor that the day he survived his camp experience, which I think was Auschwitz, he survived Auschwitz, everyone ran. Liberation, so exciting. In fact, I know people who were there on that day of liberation. On that day of liberation in January 1945, the beginning of January 1945, 17th of January. And he said that on that day of liberation, there was one man, a frum Jew, who went back into his barracks and he davened Shemona Esrei one more time. And when they asked him, why did you do that? And he said, because it was in those moments of darkness that I felt so close to Hashem. I wanted to have one more tefillah with that feeling. Now let me get really blunt with myself and with you. At the moment, we're living in a crisis. We're living in a very trying time, no secret. I don't know about you, but I think the majority of people, at least the majority of people I'm talking to, are telling me that it's a time where there's a stir in our spirituality. Is it good enough? Is it not? The questions we're asking, which maybe we feel we should have asked years ago, but it doesn't matter. We're asking them now. And those questions come up again and again and again. Is my Yiddishkeit good enough? Am I doing the best I can? Are my relationships strong? When I'm stuck at home, just with my family, is it a pleasure or is it a nightmare? Are there areas which I need to improve? Whether it's in marriage, whether it's with our children, whether it's with families, whether it's parents, grandparents, etc., etc., etc. Klal Yisrael. And that is the message we need to hold on to. At times like that, at times like this, we need to hold on. Oh, sorry, can someone let the students into the waiting room? I just got a message. Mrs. Kagan, can I make you the host? Yeah, do you know how to make me the host back again? Okay, I hope so, because I can't see Mrs. Levy. Is Mrs.
You can make, I'm here. You can make me the host. I'm the other page probably. I'm here.
Okay, I'm just going to find Mrs. Levy and I'll make you the host. Bear with me 1 minute. I can't see you. Oh, here. Okay, I've made you the host. I just got a message to let people in. And then if you can just switch me back after that, please. So as we were saying, we're living now through a very trying time, and I know from many people that this trying time has triggered growth in many areas spiritually. But what's going to happen when we get back to norm? What's going to happen? Yom HaShoa perhaps can teach us ani maamin. Perhaps it can teach us Hallel. Perhaps it can teach us one more Shemona Esrei. Let's hold on to the things that we've grown in. And if we feel we haven't done it enough, it's okay. Let's continue. Let's try. Let's try and help each other, to inspire each other, etc., etc. Let me get back now to the end of this video, which I began showing you, and then I'll close. I'm tempted to go on and on, but I'm going to control my Yetzer at the moment. And can you also put out the screen? You should be able to see the screen. In fact, I'm going to turn that off to see if I can do that again and make it better. Okay. And this is the end of that video. Now remember what the story was till now that we began to see was a man in Auschwitz, and now what's happened is he's been changed into a frame on a mantelpiece or on a sideboard, so to speak. This is going to be the grandfather in the rest of the story. Just take a look at the continuation of the story. If I know how to press play, that'll be good. Play. And here we have the end of this story. I'm especially putting the music quiet because of the sphere. We have a boy in bed with Noah. And this is a repetitive story in our lives. It's challenging times where we need to reconnect to Animanim. As you can see, this is a boy who unfortunately is not well with corona. And his father sitting by his bedside with a picture of the grandfather in the background. And that is the message which we have time and time again in Klal Yisrael's history. We go through challenging times. We go through nisyonos. We go through collective challenge. We go through personal challenge. So many different ways. But our dream and our goal is again and again to hold on to those words, Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema b'vias HaMashiach. And just to end with one sentence, if anyone's scared about the days of Mashiach, the Rambam says the world's not going to be majorly different. The only major difference is going to be, says the Rambam, that everyone's going to appreciate Hashem. Obviously, that makes a major change, but we'll still have our family life. We'll still have many creature comforts, but we'll know how to use it as well as we can. We'll have health. We'll have simcha on a continual basis. And Amit Hashem will be able to be reunited in Yerushalayim, B'Korev, with Mashiach Halavai. But even if not before then, Hashem should help us continue our journey to grow through the messages of the survivors. They wanted us to stay happy. They wanted us to keep singing Hallel. The only way to serve Hashem is Ivdu es Hashem. One condition, B'Simcha. We can do it if we stick together. Thank you for listening. It's been a zuchas. Keep well. I'll stay on. I'll actually stay on to hear you all. I'm going to make Mrs. Levy the host for the rest of this.
Okay.
Go.
It's always hard to go after Rabbi Turner. But Heidi Klein, I asked a few of you who actually had grandparents if you'd want to share. And it was a little, with Pesach just ending, it didn't give people that much time to prepare. But I'm happy that Heidi stepped up to plate. Heidi, I don't see you on my screen. Heidi, are you ready? Where's Heidi?
She just wrote on the chat that she's not on it, that she got disconnected and she needs to be let back onto it.
Oh, I see her. Okay. She knows when to run away. Shani Hans, would you like to share something from your experience? While we're waiting for Heidi, is Heidi back in? Heidi's back in.
Yeah, sure. Heidi wants to go first, she can.
Heidi, ready? Heidi.
Can you give me like 5 minutes?
Yes. So Shani, Tell them what you want to do, where it's from.
So Rabbi Turner was talking a lot just now about like numbers and about how 6 million is just a number, and like, does it really mean what we like? It really doesn't represent it enough. So I want to just read. We made this little thing last year for all the staff on our Poland trip, and basically every girl kind of wrote something. So I actually wrote something about numbers while we were actually in Poland, and then I did it. So I thought I'd just share it real quick because it kind of had to do a lot with what Turner was saying. So I'll just read from it. I don't know if you hear the baby crying in the background, so it might be mine. Numbers. It seems that numbers are the first instinct that we jump to. 6 million, 6,000,000 is just 7 numbers, and 6 million, SIXMILLION, is just 10 letters. It means nothing unless you count each number that adds up to 6 million, unless you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on and on and on and on and on forever until you reach the infamous number. On one of the bus drives in Poland, I decided that I would try to draw 6 million dots. One tiny stroke of a pen to represent an entire human being. And even that seems impossible. It would take hundreds, maybe even thousands of pages for what? A tiny dot. A tiny dot is nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Every person is a world, and there are 6 million, even more, that were not counted. These were worlds that were lost. They returned to ash, and they were scattered in the dust. Worlds that are nameless and mysterious to us, yet they were once alive, living real lives, experiencing real emotions, feeling real joy before it was all torn apart. It's important to mourn the dead, but it's also important to celebrate the lives they once lived. We shouldn't believe that the lives of those people started and ended with the Holocaust. And then I talked about more things in Poland. But yeah, so for me, like, numbers was a huge thing, a huge focus about it. I wasn't just saying it. Give me 1 second. This was what happened. And then I even took a second blank journal and started it and made it like 2 pages, and it just seemed so impossible. So I just thought that was something I'd share because I thought that was really crazy cool. And yeah, that was it.
Wow, thank you.
Okay. Very impressive. Heidi, are you ready, or should I go first? Okay.
I'm ready.
You ready? Great. Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Mrs. Levy asked me to she wanted to make this Yom HaShoa, I guess, more personal, and so she asked me to speak about my grandfather who lived in Europe during the time of the war. So I had to recruit my grandfather and many of my other family members to get a specific story together. So here it goes. Before the war, my great-grandfather, Rabbi Yoel Klein, was one of the Roshei Kehillah in a little village called Mattersdorf in Austria. Mattersdorf was the place where the Chassam Sofer was Rav before he went to become the Rav in Pressburg. In 1938, when the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, came to Austria for the Anschluss, my great-grandfather happened to be out of the country, and of course, when he heard the news, he was no longer able to go back home to his family. During that time, the Nazis expelled all the Jews from Austria, including my great-grandfather's family, my grandfather, Reb Mendel Klein, his mother, and siblings. With nowhere to go, they ended up in a forest, a no man's land, between Austria and Hungary. Between Mattersdorf and Sopron. Sopron is a town in Hungary on the border with Austria. My grandfather, Reb Mendel Klein, was about 5 years old. 2 siblings were older than him, and 1 sibling was younger. For 20 plus hours, the whole family was laying in the snow and hiding. Their food and drink were nothing but snow. And throughout this time, my great-grandmother took some snow, squeezed it to become water to wash the hands of the kids, Nagelwasser, for those that might have dozed off in the snow. My great-grandfather at the time was already in Sopron and was working on making arrangements to save his family and bring them to Hungary. He was actually watching his family from a high point mountain in Sopron as his family was laying in the forest. He hired a person that was carrying goats in a wagon pulled by horses to bring his family through the forest to Shupron. When the wagon arrived to them, my great-grandmother was seated up next to the driver, while my grandfather and siblings were hidden under the goats. This is how they made their trek through the forest, till they arrived safely in Shupron, Hungary. Eventually, the whole family made their way to Budapest, Hungary. During this time, throughout until the war came to Hungary itself in 1944, my great-grandfather was very involved in helping people escape deportations from Hungary to Poland and Galicia, the Nazis, and the prisons. Every day of the year, including Shabbos and Yom Tov, except Yom Kippur, he would go to the prisons and see which of the new people were put in prison while fleeing from the Nazis. He became friends with the heads of the prison, and they used to call him Tallin's Klein. Tallins means a prison in Hungary. The Rabbanim allowed him to go to bars with the Goyim and buy them wine so that he could use his influence to be matzil, people from prison and deportations. He was very involved in the Hatzalah of many known people, to name just a few: Rabbanim of Klosenberg Rebbe, of Klosenberger Rebbe Zatzal, the Belzer Rebbe Zatzal, Kivyashter Rebbe Zatzal, and Kitchepupa Zatzal, and many others. At that time, the Klosenberger Rebbe was a nephew from the Satmar Rebbe. When the Klosenberger Rebbe Zatzal was arrested in 1941 in Hungary, along with his Rebbitzin and children, put in prison to be deported to Galicia on the next transport, the Satmar Rebbe reached out to my great-grandfather to request his assistance in helping save his nephew and family. Being deported to Poland and Galicia at that time was a guaranteed death sentence. When my great-grandfather arrived to the prison and told the Klosenberger Rebbe Zatzal that he is here, b'shlichus from the Satmar Rebbe Zatzal, to make sure he and his family will not get deported, and told the Klosenberger Rebbe, "I give you my promise, you will not be taken from here and be deported." The Klosenberger Rebbe refers back to my great-grandfather as Hamalach HaGoel. Baruch Hashem, my great-grandfather was successful in his mission. Unfortunately, a few years later, in 1944, when the Nazis came in full force to Hungary, the Klosenberger Rebbe Zatzal and his family were ultimately deported to the death camps, where his whole family, besides him, perished in the gas chambers. When he was successful in getting the Belzer Rebbe, Reb Aaron Zatzal, whisked out of Hungary, the last thing the Belzer Rebbe told him, "Yeh chalkei imach. May I myself merit a reward in Olam Haba as great as yours." Even on Rosh Hashanah, he would go after Shachar to the jail to see what he needs to do and who he needs to save. During the time he was out of shul, the big shul in Budapest, the whole shul would wait with Musaf and Tekiah Shofar until he returned. During 1944, my great-grandfather was once caught carrying false identification papers, which put him in great danger. Hashem, with his infinite chesed, made a nace that the Nazi officer ran to the window to watch a horse training. While the Nazi officer was looking out the window, my great-grandfather took the false identification papers and threw it into the fireplace. When the Nazi officer came back from the window, his superior asked him, "What is this Jude doing here?" When he was not able to find the falsified papers anymore, he let my great-grandfather go. Later on, he was deported to Austria, to a place called Munka Tabor, to a camp for forced labor, where he remained till the end of the war. While his family, my grandfather, his mother, and siblings stayed in a place in Budapest called Schutzhaus. It was a Swiss safe house. One day, the Nazis came in and took away my great-uncle, my grandfather's older brother, and him along with many men, all above a certain age, to the Duna. It's a waterway in Budapest between Buda and Pest. Where the Nazis routinely shot the people and threw them into the Duna. My great-grandmother quickly took a gold watch and ran to the Duna and gave the gold watch to a Nazi to bring back her son, my uncle, my great-uncle. My great-uncle was the only person who survived from all the people taken that day. My grandfather came very close to getting killed, but Hashem saved him and he survived the war. His family did not know his whereabouts or if he survived. When my grandfather came back to Budapest, he could not find his family. He did not know what my great-grandfather. He did not know what happened to them and if they survived, until a neighbor told him that the family went to a darf called Faragaz. A darf is a village. My great-grandfather went to guys to find his family. Once he knew where they were, he sent in a person to tell them that he is alive so that they will not get shocked when he shows up. Afterwards, he came into a hen house where the family was. It's not possible to imagine the happiness of the family when they saw each other. After the war in America, the Satmar Rebbe Zatzal reached out to my grandfather and asked him to please become the Rosh HaKol of his congregation. When my grandfather responded in surprise, "Rebbe, me, I'm more of a yucky. I don't even have a beard." The Rebbe Zatzal responded, "Reb Yoel, I don't need your beard, I need you." And so he became the first president of the Satmar Kehillah in America, when he was very involved in building the Kehillah. He saved hundreds of lives during the war, which today, Bli Ayin Hara, amounts to thousands of people when counting all of the offsprings. He was just one of the many heroes that risked their own lives to save so many others. And my grandfather he said that last year they married off their first great-grandchild, and he mentioned that, and he's like, when I was lying there in the snow, he's like, I wasn't thinking that like in so many years from now I'll be able to be marrying off my great-grandchild. I thought, this is it. But here we are today.
Beautiful, 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 Heidi.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's very, very inspiring to any of you that still have Holocaust family members. They're getting less and less. And I know that everyone's been on for a long time. And I just want to add on, I'll try to make it as short as I can. But I do feel that I want to add on one more perspective, also from more of a personal angle, like Heidi. Rabbi Turner somehow gets me to do things that I don't ever do. But he got me to look much more into my own family members. He made me look and do more research, understand what they did, and I actually did spend a lot of time on it. So this is the first time I'm actually sharing it, and it's right now to all of you. My straight family line, no one went through the Holocaust. Everyone got out much earlier. I mean, I do have one grandfather who was in Germany, but the Germans knew what was coming and he left to America. But I'm talking about my other great-grandfather, originally from Hungary. When he was younger, went to America, nothing to do with the Holocaust, but then obviously it was. He was a young Rav in a shul in New York, in Yonkers. And then in 1943, just again, I did put together some pictures, not that many, but if people said the world didn't know what was going on, we even have a clip from, one second, forgot to share my screen, 1 minute. Forgot you need to share your screen before you show it, 1 minute. This is his congregation, 1 minute, do you see it? Yes? Okay, this is his calling out the congregation 1943, telling everyone to come, a call to prayer. And if you're able to read it, he actually is telling everyone about the atrocities that are happening in Europe. So, I mean, 1943 is a little bit late, but at that point, they already knew what was going on. What's interesting is also at that year, he was asked by the New York district to actually was appointed to be the chief of he was a chaplain of the fire department. The chaplain for the fire department is pretty much taking care of all the needs of any of the Jewish firefighters. If it might be any hardship that they come through, they pretty much will come to him, and he was supposed to take care of their issues, because the person that was doing it before him was called to World War II, and he was being a chaplain in Europe, and therefore they asked him to take over that position, and he took it over in 1943. What's interesting is as 1945 came around, which is the end of the war, the day the war ended, September 2nd, they came to him and they said, the war is over, Europe is liberated, we need you to fly over right now to take care of all the Jewish people that are in Europe. Not knowing what he got himself into, he got on the plane the day of liberation and landed in the concentration camps the day after liberation. He literally landed into the chaos of everything. And he says, I mean, I never met him, unfortunately. He died even before my parents got married. But what we've heard is he said that he landed into such a chaotic state. The excitement of liberation was incredible, but within hours or days, it started crashing for everyone. When everyone suddenly realized the Holocaust and how much they suffered is nothing compared to what they're actually finding out now. When they're finding out they have no homes to go home to, they have no family, they have no communities, they have nothing left. When he's saying that that excitement of liberation really soon turned into a nightmare, which they could not believe what they were hearing, because everyone was so isolated from each other. No one actually realized what was going on and what was the scope of the horrific things that were taking place all around. And within a few days, they had to really put themselves together. And he was one of the first people. He was actually assigned by the Joint because he spoke Hungarian. He knew a lot of other languages. He was actually appointed to be the liaison between the German military government and the Jewish religious authorities, which means, in other words, now that America liberated the war and he was a chaplain from them, he was in charge of the German soldiers, which means, and I'll show you in the next picture. 1 minute. Why am I not being able to turn it? Am I? 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Oh, here it is. 1 minute. Here it is. You see my great-grandfather's in the middle, and all around him are German soldiers. And it was a little bit of a bittersweet moment for a lot of the Holocaust survivors watching my grandfather tell all the German soldiers what they should be doing and how should they be what do they need to do to take care of the prisoners, to take care of the Jews, what do they need to provide from him. They said my great-grandfather would be literally driving around in German army jeeps with German soldiers, and he would be giving them instructions, all of what to do to the Jewish people that were left behind. He right away started setting up DP camps, realizing that everyone was trying to find each other, everyone was trying to look for each other. The next thing that he did was one of his things that he was very much known for, was the first one to realize they need kosher food. If you see here, kosher corned beef loaf, he would bring in, that's my great-grandfather next to it. This is my great-grandfather. This is actually another American soldier, and these are the people that were waiting for the kosher food to come in. This actually started what my great-grandfather is actually known for, which I'm not going to go into, but he's actually the founder of the OU Hechsher in America. When he came back from the war, he was appointed to actually standardize kashrus across America. But he was the first one to realize all the different needs of the Jews there. And if you remember what he looked like 2 years ago, he turned white within 2 years from the huge undertaking that he took and from really what he had to hear every single day from everyone that he met, and that all the tzaras that he heard and all the tzaras that he saw. And it was really a very big undertaking for him. I met at Mrs. Gordon's wedding this year. So someone told me that there's a Holocaust survivor that they wanted me to meet. And I was a little bit surprised. So I went over to him and they told me, his name is, Rabbi Turner knows him, Rabbi Yosef Lefkowitz. And they told me, go over to Rabbi Yosef, tell him who you are. So I didn't know what to tell him because I have no idea who this person is. So they tell him who your great-grandfather is. And I told him, I didn't even know what they wanted, but I figured out that he probably wanted Rabbi Rosenberg. And he was able within a second to go back 80 years. And he told me, that was your grandfather? He was the first one to bring us tefillin, sidurim, kosher food. And he was saying all the different names of the concentration camps that he would go between to deliver it. And I think that was another thing that actually inspired me to look into it more, because if everyone else knows who my grandfather is, great-grandfather, I think I should spend a little bit more time in getting to know what he did and what he was. There's here another picture, this is already 2 years later. This is 2 years later when you see him already, you see the people next to him, they already all look much better. This is in 1947. This is in DP camp in Germany. That's really where he spent the last year of when he was there. In Europe, he was mainly in Germany, the DP camps there. He's like giving out newspapers for them. He was trying to, make them integrate, be part of everything. Everyone always remembers him as the one that brought that Yiddishkeit into Germany for them, realizing that for all these years they really had nothing. And my great-grandfather really took that from there, and that was his mission for the rest of his life. I mean, what he did for those years was trying to get visas for everyone to different countries, try getting people jobs. I mean, later on, he tried to give them, a lot of his mashgichim were all Holocaust survivors. He said that if they went through the Holocaust, the amount of emunah they have to have, he trusts them in all of his plants that he was setting up across America, so for the OU to be able to happen. And I very much think that this is something which very much changed my mindset and my appreciation to the Holocaust survivors. The Holocaust never ended for them. It's not that 1945 came and the Holocaust was over. The living day in and day out for all these Holocaust survivors without their families, without their parents. I mean, if you'll speak to them, there's so many of them. They never had a grandparent in their life. They never had siblings, family simchas. It's things that they never had until it was their own things. And obviously, I mean, my great-grandfather was known that he wanted to be in a better mood. He would just go outside from community and watch people walk down the streets with their children. It gave him such chizuk to be able to see that there's Jewish continuity. But I think for the Holocaust survivors, for us to realize that the Holocaust for them never ended. It never ended. They were living it every single day. The fact that they still have faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the fact that they still have faith in humanity, that they're building communities, that they're serving communities, they have trust in people, they get married, they have children, they move on, is something which is so incredible. And I think I also sent out earlier yesterday different links of Holocaust survivors that are speaking. I just feel like there's so much, when you listen to these people speak, it's just from such a different place that we should have so much appreciation for what we're hearing and what we're saying with, I forgot his name, I did write it down, but Rav Yaakov Edelstein, he was nifter 5 years ago, one of the Gedolim here of Eretz Yisrael. It was known that when people would come and ask him for a bracha, he would say, there's no reason to come to me. Anyone with a number will give you a better bracha than I can give you. And it actually did become a thing for a while. And I know my husband's aunt was very sick, and they're like, we need to find a Holocaust survivor, because anyone with a number, their brachos are something which we can't take for granted, because the fact that not only they lived through the Holocaust, but their ability to keep on living is something which is really very, very remarkable and something to look up to. And I think all of us, anyone that's living, or Rabbi Turner is a pro at stalking Holocaust survivors, and Mrs. Gerst does an amazing job as well. But I think all of us really, we're at the end. I mean, I think that was one of the hardest things now with this whole coronavirus, is so many of our Holocaust survivors have been passing away these last few weeks, that the few that are left, if we could really take that opportunity to hear them and listen to them and recognize that they're living something so big, and with that have so much simchas chayim. This Rav Yosef Lefkowitz that I told you about, so he comes with the college groups that I work with to Poland, and he actually, he was in the labor camp of Plaszów. His whole family got killed in Plaszów, and 2 years ago he went back with Maor there, and I think I'll want to share with you the video of him there. 1 minute, let me just see if I could. 1 minute, I think I have to unshare and reshare. 1 second. This is, 1 minute, do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see myself. I don't see you. I only see this. Okay.
No, you only see that.
Okay. So I'll. Stand in the middle is Rav Yosef. That simchas chayim to be able to have is something which is unreal. is unreal after everything to go through, to have so much emunah, have so much belief, and have so much appreciation for life. I wish we could all learn from these things and just have the same. And that's pretty much it. Back to you, Rabbi Turner.
Wow, what a video. I didn't know that he knew your grandfather.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. I'm just going to end with just one practical thing, but actually taking Mrs. Levy's line just now. I think that's really important. I'm just going to tell you two really quick things. Number one, I met that Rabbi Yosef Lefkowitz that we just saw dancing a number of times. In fact, at Mrs. Gordon's chasna, I was sitting next to him, and it was just magical to watch a man. And he said that he was sitting there literally in tears. He said, I'm looking at this young, beautiful couple. That's what he said. It just brings back such memories of the weddings I used to be at in Krakow when I was a young boy. And this is our future. He literally, he tried not to shout, but he was like shouting at me, this is our future. Especially we've got a color online with us. This is our future. We've got here so many of you. This is our future. And us with our children, whether it's Mrs. King, Mrs. Lovey, myself, wow, we're so lucky. I'll just tell you one thing he once said to me. I met him once in the streets in Yerushalayim. Do you remember the mall called Shefa Mall? Off Rehov Yirmiyahu, in that area of Yerushalayim near Bells. So I once met him there, and he was with a smartphone, and he was struggling with his smartphone. And I met him then. I went up to him. As you could see in those pictures, he's quite short. So I went up to him and I put my arm on his shoulder and I bent down a bit. And I said, Rav Yosef, is everything okay? And he says, I don't know how to do with this phone. And I said, let's go sit down. We sat down in the cafeteria. And he starts showing me his phone. And he said, I got a message from Bezek that they've canceled my Wi-Fi and my internet's not working. This guy, literally, he's 90. And he's in Shefa. I said, 1 second, let's see if I can help you. I tried to help him. He was probably better at technology than I am, but I couldn't help him much. I said, you know what, let's go across the road and we'll go into the mall, into one of the shops there, and we'll try and fix your phone. And as we were crossing the road, I was holding on to him carefully. That man that we just saw, Ms. Levy just spoke about, we were crossing the road. It's called Rehov Shamgar, going into Shefa. And I made a remark, which I was just being sarcastic and, just trying to lighten his day. He seemed to be very stressed by his phone. I said, Rabbi Yosef, and I know his story. He's told it to me. I said, Rabbi Yosef, you've been through tougher than this, right? And he said to me the most brilliant answer. I'm looking at him saying, you've been through, your Wi-Fi is not working. You were in Plaszow. You were in concentration camps. You lost everything. And he said, you're right. Listen to this line. Brilliant. He said, you're right. But now this is my challenge. But now this is what I'm dealing with. Now this is giving me tsar. This is giving me pain. And it put the whole world of pain into a different perspective. On a day like Yom HaShoa, we think about those 6 million. You're right, but I'm struggling today with Corona. And the answer is, you're right. Today, that is my challenge. I'm struggling today with concentrating in davening. I'm struggling today with sneers. I'm struggling today with brachas. Whatever the ... is after that, I'm struggling. Today, that is my problem. It was such a genius insight on crossing the roads of Yerushalayim, trying to literally survive crossing the roads of Yerushalayim. But whatever. I'm just going to end with one more thought. And that is, maybe we can do something collectively. And that way, we're not going to make a huge dent or a huge improvement perhaps in the world, but maybe we'll make an improvement times 34. Based on what Mrs. Levy said, maybe each one of us can try within the next 24 hours just to send an email, make a phone call, send a picture, give a WhatsApp call if they're able, to anyone that you know who's over 80. Anyone who you know who's over 80. I tried last night, I reached out to Angela Oretz, a lady that was born in Auschwitz, and just make one older person's life and day a little bit happier. Because by the way, if we're struggling with Corona and we know how to use technology and we have friends and we have people what we're involved in, for older people, it's so not easy. In fact, it's so not easy. I know my grandmother who's 96, she is so lonely and she is so scared and anxious that she's just lost any control which she still did have. She's told where she has to go, who's allowed to look after her, which grandchildren, in fact, no grandchildren are allowed to visit her. Let's try and see if we can. You don't have to, you can do what you want, but just a suggestion. Each of us just reach out to at least one person over the age of 80, because anyone over 80 was touching in the world of the Holocaust, and anyone over 85 or 90 went through the Holocaust, maybe not in Germany or Poland, maybe in Israel or in America or in England or in Gibraltar, I don't know. But if we can do that, that'll be, I think, our bit. At least one. You want to do 10, do 10. One email, it can be anything. Just reach out to someone to make them smile and make them know they're not alone. And I think then we've done tremendous chesed, and then we've made perhaps our Yom HaShoa count. Rather than counting people or rather than counting days, let's make days count, let's make people count. It's been such a privilege, it's been such a, I don't know if Mrs. Kagan and Mrs. Levy identify with this feeling, but to be back in the classroom with all of you, dream come true. Let's all be healthy. Thank you for being here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone has anything else to add? Your thoughts, stories, inspiration? Everyone can unmute themselves now. Let's go.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Rabbi Turner, you mentioned that the numbers of the dead are decreasing in Medanic. But what do you mean by that?
I mean that there's a lot of historians who are arguing, and archaeological experts, how many people really were killed in each camp? Because not everything was recorded, which leaves a terrible, terrible crack in the wall of history of accurate information. And therefore you can argue it was 6 million, maybe it was 10 million, maybe it was 2 million, maybe it wasn't so many Jews, maybe it didn't even happen. And there have been people, read or look up on the internet, people like Devorah Lifstadt, who had to stand up against one of the greatest Nazi Holocaust deniers, David Irving. Terrible stories. People try to change history and people try to argue, but especially when it comes to numbers. Take the corona, for example. Take the corona, for example. Do you know, should I put numbers into perspective? My son said this to us last night whilst we were having supper. He said, you know, this is a period of time called Sfiras HaOmer, where we know that 12,000 pairs of students of Rebbe Akiva died, which is 24,000. When I was a kid, 24,000 people to die in a few months? That's impossible. But within a few months, more than 24,000 have died in Italy. But having said that, exactly how many people have died from corona in every country? We know that the media is full of arguments. Is it accurate? Can you trust China? Can you trust Russia? Are we given all the information? And therefore, that's what I meant. I didn't mean the numbers are actually changing. Technically, nothing's changing. But belief in how many Jews were killed in each camp has become a terrible, sad debate.
Thank you.
Anyone else? To share? Go.
Yeah. As everyone was talking, I'm not such a talker when it comes to these things, but I happen to have with me, and I wonder if I can turn my camera around. I can. I've been reading through a book of my family, and it's a few hundred pages, and every single person in it died, and it's double-sided. But when I was talking to in Israel, Rabbi Turner also kind of got me into it. So I tracked down a cousin whose father devoted the rest of his life to make the book. And I asked him, because the book doesn't only have photos and dates and deaths, it has a miniature paragraph for each person about what they did in their lives, as much as he could anyway. Some people don't have photos, and I asked him, I said, why is it necessary? And he said, because if you and numbers are important, and looking at this book, and it's, when I started counting, the numbers of my family who died went up into the hundreds and thousands. It was actually thousands, like a few thousand of the cousins, and he managed to track down the entire tree, and for each grandfather and their family. And I just said, and he said, but if we just reduce them to like a line or a number or a dot, then you lose who they were. Like, I read through these stories of family members who stayed even though they could have left because they refused to leave their family, and family members who secretly signed up underage to fight. And I think that it's important to remember that, like, these people are people. I don't know. It's just like you get to see them, and I try to imagine like writing my entire life in a paragraph and then one photo, and I can't. And this is more than most people have, so I don't know. It's just the magnitude doesn't really hit us, but Rev Dessler talks about trying to imagine happiness and imagining a moment of happiness in your day, and then in your week, and then in your life, and then in your family's lives, and then in everyone else's lives, and go through all of time. And I do that with the people in this book. I think of him and then what must have been for all of his friends and then all of his family. And I don't know, like, even with all of this, like, you don't get the magnitude. I don't think it's fair. That's it.
It's hard to put it in perspective, for sure.
Yeah, you really don't get to.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? We're good?
I have something I could say.
I know that Estrella, yes.
Yeah, Estrella. I think Poland would have been, if we went on the Poland experience trip, that would have been very eye-opening. My heart's racing right now from pain. I feel like I got punched in the gut. More yesterday, but last night. I'm in Israel, so it was yesterday. But Poland, to actually even like an inkling of experience of the pain and suffering of what they went through, as you guys have been saying, it's not just even understanding that it's how big the number 6 million is. I can't even understand how big 6 million is. Somebody did like 1 million grains of rice. That's so much. You're telling me there's 6 amount of that, but not just rice, a human being, and not just a one name or a number, like an entire life, right? So that's crazy. And us here, we can't really imagine it. And well, I don't think anybody can, even the people who went through the Holocaust, because they know thousands of people that they were with, but not everybody else in the entire world that was suffering. Nobody can understand that. And last night, the family that I'm staying at here in Israel, the girls are in high school, and so they had their Yom HaShoa group with their school last night, and we found a name of the family I'm at. They don't know anybody from their family that passed away from the Holocaust, because they weren't they don't have any direct line that was affected by it. Found a name online, and we lit a candle, and we said a few parakim of something, and then also Tehillim, and it hurt so much, and you want to walk away from the pain because it hurts so much. And imagine if Yom HaShoa was every day of the year, but it's one day, and it hurts. What I'm getting to, I think, is that you can't understand the pain. And imagine losing one person in your life that you love. What is it like to lose every single person in your entire life? Like we in seminary, we lost our whole family. We lost all our friends, our teachers, our chavrutas, the community around us, the whole seminary. We lost all of that, and that seems so rough. And then also the Holocaust, that's insane. It's I guess Baruch Hashem that I don't know what that feels like to go through the Holocaust, but it's also it's insane. It's insane. And there's people who are denying it and saying that the Holocaust never happened, or like just like in the numbers are going down every year every time you go visit Rabbi Turner. Like that's crazy. It's really important that we hear people's stories, and we have these, because this generation is sadly gonna be gone soon in the next, I don't know, 30 years, 50 years. They're gonna be gone. So it's important that we keep it alive and are hearing stories and speaking to people about it. There's Bella was with me. We were in Tachan Merkazit with Ariella Lax, and we met up with her. We were sitting at the food court, and this random lady, I wasn't really there. She was talking to Bella more. I wasn't listening because I walked in the middle. But she started telling us about her life. I guess she was lonely. She started telling us everything about her childhood and how she travels and how she loves Israel, and like just like I don't think she was a Holocaust survivor, but her just everything about it. These people, they want to tell their story, so it's important that we listen and we write this down. We have it in record.
Wow.
My grandmother said that actually, because like my grandmother's a Holocaust survivor, and I was on the phone with her, and she said the hardest thing was she lost everyone, literally everyone, and she said the thing about Corona is she lost her parents and her grandparents and her cousins and her aunts and her sisters and her uncles, but going through Corona like cuts her off from everyone below, like the children and the grandchildren, because she lives alone. So she told me, she's like, it's the weirdest thing, because we were talking about God, because she's the one who sent me to seminary, and she said it's like, and it like I kept on saying like Corona is like nothing compared to, because today's Yom HaShoa, and she said in a way for us it is for us just as legitimate, like, and for her even more so, because she lives by herself in the city. So I think we can't delegitimize like this as well.
For sure. But we all had our, I mean, here in Eretz Yisrael, things are always so different here in Israel, but even by us, it was different this year. But I hope it was a meaningful day for everyone. I know Mrs. Kagan said she listened into some of the classes, and there's probably recordings of them. And if people want to be able to go, Ms. Kagan.
No, from J Roots today, there was Angelo, two people that Rabbi Turner mentioned. Well, I think one. Angela with.
And also, Rabbi Yosef is on. Also, Rabbi Yosef is there.
Yeah. It's Kedai to look at it. Mrs. Levy sent you the link. It's Kedai to look and see, and the interviews, the personal interviews, are just amazing to watch. Who these people are, and the feeling of love and gratitude and emunah is just something to really, really soak in, really take in.
Yeah. So we try to send you for these on these special dates, like other links, and I never know if it just makes everyone overwhelmed, or are you happy to be able to have more information? Yeah. I don't know, but we'll try when we send the links and everything. Hopefully we'll try to like let you know like which ones are the ones that we know. Like for instance, I know the girls from the previous years, some of them knew Rena, exactly. So in the year before you knew somebody, Angela, and then whatever. So we'll try to also key in on which one you should listen to, but we will try so you could keep on really getting a better taste and understanding and appreciation for all these people, which is amazing. Anyone else? We're good?
Nina, it's nice to see. Nina, who are you with?
This is my grandmother. Hi. I enjoyed listening in. She comes to most classes. Fun fact.
Oh, amazing.
Is she getting credit?
I'm getting haba. I am getting credit.
You know what? Let me give you credit. It's been a dream teaching Nina.
Thank you.
Do you want to add? Would you like to add something?
No, not really. Thank you. I meant just.
So just give us a blessing. Give us a blessing.
Give a blessing. Give a bracha. A bracha? I give a bracha to everybody that was in seminary and all of Klal Yisrael that we should come out of coronavirus quickly. Amen.
Amen. You should all be well. Enjoy each other's company.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Shani and Heidi.
Thank you.